without further ado, I will obviously share your Twitter handle, D365Goddess on Twitter, Dian Taylor on LinkedIn. There you are, and d365goddess.com as your blog. So thank you very much. And without further ado, we the floor to Dian, please. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I figured let me just throw all of my stuff out there. Like I said, my name is Dian Taylor. I actually work for RSM as a pre-sales engineer. And feel free to take a look at my blog, contact me on Twitter. I also have my YouTube and my LinkedIn as well, obviously. And this is also what that big slide or that big QR code is as well, that you can just go ahead and scan, and then we can connect. So I'm just going to go ahead and dive in because I have so much content. So I just want to make sure that I'm going to be touching on everything. And then obviously I also want to do some demos for you guys so you can kind of see what that looks like if you haven't yet. So these are the areas I'm going to cover. So some generic enhancements, the 365 for sales, customer service, and field service applications is actually what we're going to cover today. So let's just go ahead and start with the generic enhancements. And I wanted to start with this one. I thought it was kind of a nice feature, and it also, for whatever reason, I think it's kind of funny. But so you can see here that now we have notes custom formatting. So these enhancements were actually listed somewhere else, but I figured let me just all put them together because it doesn't matter, you know, where you're logging in, right? The Sales Hub or customer service, you're going to get notes everywhere. So this is really exactly what that is. You see a bar there on the bottom that's giving you that formatting choices, so to speak, right? So you can see that. And you can change the colors, as you can see. You can make it bold, or you can make it like whatever you want, right? You can throw links in there. And I kind of thought that was a nice feature because we're going to be able to put in a lot more rich type of editing. Now, with the timeline itself, it also kind of changed. So you can kind of see that I'm going to actually in the next slide go over all of these different sections and the numbers that we have on here. But I think one of the main thing is that we can now perform a keyword search in that timeline. So it's going to be a lot easier to find things in that timeline, those activities. And we're also obviously going to be able to very quickly identify the status of those activities, right? You can see that the overdue ones are red, and you can also see, right, number 6 is actually active, which is not as much popping out as the red one. So here are the different numbers and what you can do with those areas, right? So one is obviously searching records and also searching for keywords. You can enter a note there. You can create a new activity, obviously, like we are used to with the plus button, and we can filter. And there's some additional commands, obviously, on that ... And then we also have, as you can see earlier, right, the activity status. And then we have icons as well there on the side. So that looks a little bit different. And then you can also see the date and time of that particular activity as well. And I believe that's the modified date, but I think you can configure that as well. And this was a huge one because we kind of lost the ability to filter on contains data and doesn't contain data and all that good stuff, right? That we used to have in the quote unquote old interface or legacy interface. So that's back. And obviously, depending on the field that you're on, you're going to get different options, right? So if I'm on a date and time field, you can see that in the screenshot, I'm going to get different option than, for example, if I'm on a regular text field or if I'm on a field that's more of like an option set. So you definitely want to check that out. And this is also an important thing because now we have the ability to allow users to perform a search in the view that they are in. And that's very important, right? So you have to understand that if you turn this on, this search applies in the current views filter. So that means that my active contacts that you're looking at right now, it's only going to search for in this particular view with those filters on, right? So if I'm looking for somebody else, but I'm looking in that view and it says, right, search this view, because if you have it turned on, it says something else, then again, it's just going to keep those filters on. So keep that definitely in mind as well. Now, you probably want to know, okay, well, where do I go to turn this on or off? You can actually go to the system settings, and then you click on the general tab, and it's under setup search. So let's go ahead. Let me just go ahead and pull up so I can show you some of these things in that live demo. So I just have this account that I figured let me just go ahead and open it up. And here you can kind of see those activities, right? You can see here that this is overdue, this is closed. Those overdue activities are really kind of popping out, which is kind of nice. And you also see when I hover over an activity, it gives me these buttons, right? So I can assign this, I can complete an activity, and then I can add it to a queue or open the activity, or even, right, because I have delete rights, even delete an activity. So you can kind of see that that looks a lot different. Then you have some additional buttons here, right? Here's my filter buttons that we're familiar with. And I can now also, for example, I think it was a post by, I can just put filter on auto post or post by just users. I believe this is a new one as well, new filter that we have here. And then also, let me just go ahead and show you the notes. Let me see if I can just, I believe I have a note in here already, or I can even create a new note. Just go ahead and enter my note over here. So here is that bar, right? So if I just want to go ahead and make that a different color, let's make that red and make that a little bit bigger as well. Let me see if I can just make that 20. So you can kind of see that now I can start using this formatting bar here directly. And you can see here, I can put links in there and I could put a table in there, and then I can just go ahead and add that note directly here on the screen. And I also wanted to show you searching real quick, because I have an email in here that's actually tracked relating a contact. But now that I'm in the account record, I wanted to show you that you can actually, that you can actually do that search. I actually have an email that has a text, "Have a great day" in it from Angel. And here you can see that Angel, this is that email that we have. And now we can just go ahead and search inside, right, in that email, really doing that keyword search, which I thought was kind of important. Okay, so let's just go ahead and move on here to the next section. And that's really the sales, Dynamics 365 sales. So there's some changes to forecasting. I'm not sure if any of you guys have used it yet, but it's a pretty nice feature. And especially now that they're like adding some of the functionality to the forecasting, it's kind of nice. So with the flexible column modeling, we can now configure columns to be roll-up fields or even calculated fields. And I'm going to show you that in the next slide where I have a screenshot. So for example, you can set a column to a calculated field that would total maybe the value of all opportunities with a value with that status, I should say, of 1 and maybe committed. Or maybe you want to add a column that says, you know, amount left before I actually hit my goal, right? So you can do all of that out of the box now. And the quota management is now a way where you can basically add and update quotas for the entire forecast time periods by, again, using that Excel template that we have. So you can basically download that template at any point in time and then upload that back into that quote forecast, or the quote forecast, the forecast itself, sorry. And then we have some advanced filtering right now as well. So we didn't have that before. So maybe you want to set up forecast for a particular type of opportunity, right? So you can go ahead and filter out those opportunities that you want to include in that forecast. And lastly, we didn't have this either, the quota security. So you can now configure the access on forecast by assigning a security role to each individual forecast that's in the system. So it's really allowing us to do a lot more with those forecasts as well. So here are a couple of examples. This is a calculated column, right? I'm saying I'm going to create a new forecast column that's called forecast, and I'm going to make that calculated because I'm going to add the 1 column plus the committed column, and that's going to be my forecast column. So you can do stuff like that now. And then obviously you can do roll-ups as well. And then this is something that's called an adjustment grid. So once the forecast is created, if you have this configured, you can allow users to adjust the values in those live forecasts so that you can just upload that column, right? You can see that on the screen. I'm putting in an adjustment. I can put in a note, and then we can see the history of that as well, right? So if we keep going in there every year or month or whatever it is, we can just go ahead and take a look at that history of those manually entered adjustments. Now, obviously, a forecast can contain a lot of information and a deep hierarchy as well. So the organization's forecast and opportunity could be a little disjointed, right? So what we have here, and you probably seen this maybe also with the opportunities itself, this Kanban view that we have now. So you can use that with your forecast. What that does is you're basically going to click on the person that that forecast is talking about, so to speak. And I'll show you that in a demo in a second as well. And then that brings up this particular view. And now I can very easily update values in those fields that you see here. So estimated revenue, estimated close date, etc. But I can also very quickly kind of move it from one forecast stage to the next, right? You can see here that this best case is being dragged into the pipeline. So that's kind of allowing us to very quickly do things like that, and also get that visual, right, of what exactly is the total that we have in the pipeline, what is the total we have in the best case scenario, in the committed area, etc. So it's kind of nice to be able to do that. And of course, you can see here, those are as soon as that's done, then the system will update your forecast, obviously, with those values as well. Now, this is a pretty big one. So for team member licenses that were purchased during or after October 2018, the users that have that license will be restricted to a set of designated app modules. So you're not going to have access to Customer Service Hub, Sales Hub, or any of your custom app modules that you created. So you got to definitely, I hope everybody heard of this before, you definitely want to make sure that you kind of test this out, right? Because again, they're really going to enforce this. The other thing is, you can see here the designated apps are for customer service. It's the customer service team member app. And I think I have it in a slide later as well. So we can talk about that a little bit later, because that functionality is not what you think. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Sales team member is, again, also that app that is now for that license. And then there's also Project Resource Hub. So again, there is those are just the apps that they can access. There's nothing else, no other apps that they can access. These are really the designated apps for that. So keep that in mind. And this is kind of what that looks like. You can see here, I actually, if you install that, I believe if you do the update, this one actually gets installed, and you can see it's actually called a sales team member app, like you saw earlier, and you see it's very restricted, right? So what you can do here in Dynamics 365 for sales is you can view customer details and those related leads and opportunities and activities. So again, keep in mind, it is very, very restrictive, right? Which is really what that team member license is as well. And here are some enhanced experience. Now, I really kind of like this one because you can see that there is a big pop-up window when you now click on Add Products. You can see here there is this big quick create opportunity product form that basically shows me all of the products that are that I can pick from, and I can actually hover over them, and then you can see this box here that kind of pops up that is showing me the product ID field, the valid from and to fields, and also a description field. So it allows me to very quickly add those products as well, and I'll show you that in a demo in a few seconds as well. But it really is, I really like what they did with that because it's a lot cleaner. We can also add write-in products, and you can even add, you can look at recently used products as well. You can see that here up top. I have my regular product list. I can click on write-in to add write-in products, or I can just go ahead and take a look at some of the recently products that I've used so that I can very quickly add them. So it's a lot less painful than it was before. Now, this feature needs to be turned on. Obviously, you need to go to, the Sales Hub, right? Because we're talking about sales. Then you need to go to App Settings, and then there's something that is called product catalog settings, right? That's right over here, this product catalog settings, right over here. And then you can see here on the bottom that there is that yes, no button, where if you want to turn that on, obviously you want to set that to yes, and then people can just start using that. The email templates. So this is going to be so much easier because now you can just select that email template from that gallery almost that is showing. So there's a lot of benefit because it kind of shows us a list of all of the available email templates, and then we can just go ahead and scroll up and down, and then we can click on that and then preview that template. And I'll show you that as well. So it's kind of nice, like I said, to be able to very quickly now go through that. You can search for them as well, obviously, but if you don't know the name, that was kind of a problem, right, in the beginning. Or I should say before we had these email templates, a lot of times people were like, well, I don't know what it's called, so how I'm going to be able to find it? Well, now you don't have to, because you can just scroll up or down. And also, as you can see on the screenshot, it also kind of recognizes, right, your recently used templates as well. And you can now also turn on the Kanban view for activities, and that's kind of what this is showing. So it's really a simplified process to create or to complete, edit, like all of those steps right from here within that Kanban view. So it's a very nice visual. And I also like the fact that you can just go ahead and drag an activity into a different status, for example, right? And what happens is then, for example, maybe I have an open activity that I want to complete. What it actually does then is you're going to get a little pop-up window that basically is that close window, right? So it's just going to allow you to close that activity. And this ability actually allows users to create a PDF document from a Word template. So what happens is we've already had Word templates for a while, right? Where we can basically have data from Dynamics 365, and then we can, right, allow the users to push data from Dynamics 365 in that template and then show that as a PDF. We could also create an email record with that PDF attached. But what you can do now is now you have the ability to actually share it into SharePoint without having to save it first and then save it to SharePoint yourself. So that's a big one as well. And then this is kind of the same that we saw with opportunities. So we also now have that Kanban view for opportunities as well. And this wasn't working first when I turned it on, all of this stuff in February, but it is all working now. So the thing you have to kind of understand is what I had to do back when I added this stuff is you actually have to enable this on the opportunity entity. Now, I wrote, I think, 3 or 4 articles about all of the new features, and I also have videos on that on my website. So if you go to my website and you search for 2020 Release Wave 1, you're going to be able to take a look at all those videos and all those articles. And there's a lot more detail there because obviously I don't have to jam all of that in 1 hour, right? So if you want to take a look at that, feel free to do that as well. Okay, so let's go back here. And I already have a forecast open because I don't want you guys to have to wait for my screen to load. So this is kind of what I was talking about, right? So one thing that we can do here is where we can add that adjustment, right? You can see here there's a little pencil icon that I have here. So if I want to put in an adjustment, I'm going to say $30,000. I can put a note here. And then I can just go ahead and adjust that. And that's going to, as you can see, it updates it immediately. And if I want to go back in here and kind of take a look at that history, you can see that I can do that. And I can even reset that as well if that's something that I wanted to go ahead and do. Now, if I actually click on this, you can see that let me actually click on myself over here. You can see that it shows me those underlying records, right? All of my opportunities here, I can update these values, the estimated revenues, etc. And I can also show this as that Kanban, right? And then I can expand that. And now I can go ahead and start dragging some of these things, some of these things into these different buckets, so to speak. So that's kind of what you can do with, let me just close out of this. With these forecasts, and then you can kind of work on them, like you see, very easily. Now, the team member app, I wanted to show you that real quick where that is. So that's just this app that gets installed when you turn those features on, right? The 2020 release wave 1. And that's that screenshot that I showed you guys earlier. But this is where that is. I also wanted to show you, let me go here to activities and show you that Kanban view here as well. So I have that enabled. Here we go. And you can see here, this is actually by status, right? Open, you can see here, open activities, completed, canceled, scheduled. So if I just go ahead and I'm just gonna go ahead and put this in my completed, you could see this pop-up window, right? Now I can change, okay, what was this canceled or completed? And then I can just go ahead and close that. And also, if I want to now create a new activity from here, you can see those activity types up top here. I can just click here on phone call, and that just brings up this window right directly on top of that, right? Which is kind of nice. I can just go ahead and fill this out, and then I can just save and close that. So let's just go ahead and do that. Call to a datum, and I can put in a due date here as well. Let's just say that's going to be due here, 8 a.m. Sure. And then I can just go ahead and save that, and that will go again into that view of my activities. Okay, let's see what else we have. Email template. So let's just go back here to that A Datum Corporation account. Oops, and let's just go ahead and select create a new email. Just going to give it a sec here. And here's my insert template. And this is what's new, right? So I can very quickly just click on this on a template. Let me just do an account reconnect, and then I can see what it's going to look like, right? It's just who knows whom, marketing subscription. Okay, if I like that, I can just go ahead and apply that, and then I can just go ahead and send that off. So you can see that that's very easy to do that. Now let's take a look at opportunities. Let me just go here to new lead, sure. And let me show you that how we can add opportunity products. Let's just go over here. And here is that button. And that will now pull up, as you can see. Here we go. Here are now, this is that window, right? Which allows me very quickly to add things. See, I can just go ahead and click the little plus button, and I can update that, right? The totals. I can also kind of click here on this information, right? This little information button over here, and that gives me those. Now they actually added unit group, default unit, and primary unit as well, as you can see. So they're constantly updating this stuff, obviously, as well. And then lastly, let me just go ahead and, sure, let me just go ahead and show you if we create that PDF from a Word document. I'm going to say RSM quote. It's now ready. Do you want to save it in SharePoint? I want to save it in SharePoint. And obviously you need to have SharePoint obviously integrated, right? Otherwise it's not going to work. But that's all you have to do. So you just click that button, and then it's just going to go ahead and save that to SharePoint for you. So that's easy way to do that. All right, so let's move on here to customer service. So IoT now has actually also come to customer service. This was previously more a part of the field service component, right, in Dynamics 365, but in this release, Microsoft is coming out with the connected customer service by fully integrating IoT diagnostics, device updates, and case management. Now, using connected customer service, users will have the ability to now convert IoT alerts to case records. They can also configure commands, and they also have the ability to actually submit a command to the customer's device. And that's kind of what this looks like, right? So you can kind of see that I can very quickly send that, right? That's on the button right over here. And then I can just go ahead and send that out. This took me a little bit to get this working in my instance. I actually had to turn off, what was it, a particular search. and then I had to leave that off for 24 hours, then turn it back on, and that made it work. I have this again all on my website, some of the things, how to configure it, and troubleshooting as well if it's not working right away. So feel free to take a look at that as well. What this is really allowing us, this is a one pager that allows us to search for and review knowledge articles. So it's kind of nice to be able to look at those knowledge articles outside of the context of a case, right? I don't have to be in a case to look and review those articles. So that's kind of what that is. So I'll show you that in a demo shortly as well. This is what that looks like, right? I'm searching for travel, and it was really quick as well when you're doing that search. So it's searching for the travel, and then obviously if you have pictures and stuff in there as well, it's going to be able to show those obviously as well. And then I can even pop that out or send a URL to that particular knowledge base article, because you can configure this. If you're using a Microsoft portal, you can obviously send that URL. But if you're using a different portal, maybe you're using your own portal, you can configure that URL as well, which is nice. And I'm very stoked about this one because we thought we were going to get that the last time, and then they kind of pushed it out. But this is now available. So we're going to have customizable dialogues now for the case resolution form, and there's 3 different ones. So honestly, there's really 2 different ones, right? Because the non-customizable dialogue, that's what we have right now. So you probably don't want to use that anymore. So that dialog box is really that little pop-up window, right, that comes up. So the customizable dialogue is also a pop-up window, but this one obviously is customizable. But if you prefer something else like the quick create form, you can use that one as well. So those 2 options are available. And then you can also configure this in the service management area under service configuration. So we just talked about the team member license app for sales, and this is where I kind of want to talk about the one for customer service, because it's probably not what you expect, because this app is intended for scenarios where the app user is the actual client. So that means that they can create tickets, they can read and update cases they created, but regarding to them. So it's not regarding, if you have a customer service rep that works with your clients and that's resolving their cases, that's not what this is. This is tickets created for themselves. Think about a help desk ticket. Hey, I have an issue. It's being sent to my internal help desk or whatever customer service group, whatever, right? Employees customer service group. And then that's all that is. So keep that in mind. Now, when you turn on the 2020 release wave 1, this is not going to be installed automatically. So you have to actually install this app from the Dynamics 365 Admin Center. And there's some docs out there, right? Docs.microsoft.com, where they actually go through how you can install that particular app. But keep that in mind, right? So it's not like for people that want to resolve cases on behalf of your organization. This is a tiny one. This just means that right, as we previously announced, customers are going to need to migrate to the unified interface at some point in time, because Microsoft is going to get rid of the other one. And the customer service hub solution will then be automatically installed in all the environments in this particular release. So if you didn't know yet, that's just going to be automatically installed going forward. So if you navigate to the service management area in the customer service hub, you're going to see that routing rules and automatic record creation and update rules are now going to be accessible through the unified interface, and you can find them under the case settings section. Now, SLAs have also been enabled for the unified interface, and they can obviously be found under the service terms section under SLAs, right? Now, you got to keep in mind, and I'm actually writing an article about SLAs this weekend, and that will come out on Tuesday. It's not just a move, right? There's some new features in there, and it's too much for me to kind of explain right now. That's why I have my article coming out about SLAs. The main thing is that the logic is now going to be done in Power Automate. So you kind of have to, for some of these items, you kind of want to go in there and configure that. It's really not hard. Again, I'm doing a video on this as well in the SLAs and how to configure that that flow for that. Currently, there is a bug with those automatic record creation rules. So I'm working with Microsoft on that because I have a setup where I have a mailbox that people can email into, and then it will automatically create that case, right? Look for, hey, do I have this email address in my database? Is it a customer account or is it a customer contact? And then it will create that, automatically create that case for them. Or if it's not in there, maybe we want to automatically create a contact record. So that's not working right now. But again, I'm working with Microsoft on that as well. So keep that in mind as well. So there is another entity, the site entity is now available in the customer service hub as well. And that's really used to define customer service locations. Now, again, we also, if you look at field service, we also have a different entity that's called facility. So I'm still trying to kind of see where this fits, but I think the site entity is more for customer service versus, right? The facility is more for field service. So again, my guess is that that's kind of the difference. So again, well, routing rules don't really use Power Automate today. So what I said earlier as well, though the configurations for record creation and update rules and SLAs, both of those are now going to happen in Power Automate. So the way that that works is that when you're creating that SLA, and you're setting up your SLA items, et cetera, and you're saving your SLA item, that's when the system creates that Power Automate flow, right, based on your configurations. And that's kind of what you see in here as well. This is very similar look to the SLAs, right? You can go ahead and set that up, put your conditions in, and then you save that, and then you click on Save and Open Power Automate, and that's where you're going to go ahead and update that flow for yourself. And this works again the same way that it does for SLAs. You're going to see the similar button there as well. So when you're doing SLAs, and also obviously the automatic creation rules, but both of them have some predefined steps in there, and it also says in there, please do not delete those steps. Now again, this is an older screenshot, so it doesn't say it on here, but when you go in there, it says it in there, don't delete it, don't change it, right? This one says do not delete or update this particular step, but you can open those steps and then you can just go ahead and you can start configuring them as well, right? But just make sure that where it says don't edit or delete or update, make sure you don't actually do that because otherwise obviously it's gonna break, right? Now the queues, this was a little bit, I wasn't sure what update they did for the queues, but it's actually the ability that we got with contacts and accounts that we can kind of do very quick jumping from one queue to the other one. And I'll show you what I mean by that shortly as well. Now, we also now have enhanced email. So this wasn't available first in the sales. This was only available, in the sales hub. But now, obviously, we're going to have this in the customer service hub as well. And it was kind of funny because one of my fellow MVPs actually noticed that, hey, I turned this on in the sales hub, and then it turned on enhanced email for all the entities. So not just for the sales hub, but also for field service and for PSA and customer service. So, but we're just happy that this is out there now because it's so much easier to create those emails, right, when in this new window. And you can also navigate away, right? If you need to navigate to other sections of Dynamics 365, you can do that, and it just keeps that email compose window open, which is kind of nice. Okay, so let's dive into the customer service piece of that. And first thing I'm going to show you is, let me actually go back here to service. And the first thing I want to show you is this knowledge search. So I'm just going to go ahead and search for travel. And you can see how fast it is, right? I really like that. So you can just go ahead and click on that. And you can see here, I can give it a rating here, and I can see how many views this particular article has had so far. And then I can pop this out. I can copy the URL, or I can go ahead and send that URL. So you can do all of that from within this knowledge search page. But it's kind of nice, I feel, that you have the full page. And again, you don't have to, you know, open a case to be able to access your knowledge search articles. Okay, now let's take a look. I'm going to go to service management, and we can see here we have service configuration settings. We have customer service configuration settings. So let's go into service configuration settings. This is where you can turn some of this stuff, excuse me, on. This is, for example, where you're going to select which resolve case dialog you want to use, right? I have, as you can see, my quick create dialog, but you can also use your customizable dialog. And the standard dialog obviously is the one that we have today that most people are not very happy with, right? Because they can't really configure that. So this is where you kind of do that. And if I look here under service level agreements, this is now obviously, right, the SLAs that we can now access. Let me just go ahead and open this guy. I probably need to deactivate it. I'm going to deactivate it. Right, so this is an SLA that I actually set up. I'm just going to go ahead and go to my first response. Let me just open up my SLA item. So it looks a little bit different. And the KPI field, excuse me, used to be on the actual SLA itself, and they moved that to the SLA item, which is nice because that means you can have different KPIs and different trigger fields per SLA item. So I would definitely recommend reading my article where I'm really explaining all of that. This is, if I click on configure actions here, this is my flow, right? What I talked about. So it's now opening. There we go, Power Automates, and it's taking you directly in that related flow. And you can see here, it says, do not delete or update, do not delete or update. So you're not going to touch these. The only thing you're going to have to do here is click that button that says continue, and then these things appear. And this is, you can see here, it says, if it's nearing non-compliance, what are we going to do? So I configured these steps here. So I'm going to update a record, I'm going to get a record, and I'm going to send an email. So I'm just going to update my case record, right, to a different status. And then I'm going to look for the owner of that case so I can plug that person's name in here and then send that email notification. So this is how you can do that. And again, it's not too hard to go ahead to do that. So let me go back here to my SLA. I'm just going to go ahead and close that. And let me just show you here the customer service is now over here. So this is where you can really set your times, right? When is my customer service department working? What are their working hours? And you can assign those to those server level agreements as well. So now, the other thing that's a little bit different from creating SLAs is you have to set up your SLA KPIs first. If you don't do that, you're not going to be able to create SLAs. And there's a field on the SLA. That's that entity. Let me just go ahead and open this up. This primary entity that will just be blank, which is kind of weird because I'm first, like I said, I was trying to create those SLAs and I'm like, is that an error that the primary entity field is blank? So you have to first create those SLA KPI items, and then you need to go into inactive ones, and then you need to, then you need to go ahead and activate them. And then you're going to be able to create your SLAs or start working on those. Okay, let's move forward here. So now let's talk about Dynamics 365 field service. So you probably all know, if you're familiar with incident types, basically what incident types is, they're a way for an organization to standardize work. So this means that, you know, services and parts, all that stuff that's needed to complete work can be attached to an incident type. I usually tell customers, like, incident type is kind of a work order template, right? That has all of those all of those different services attached and all of those different products attached. So incident type AI is really looking at the incident types, and then it's also looking at completed work orders, and it's looking at, you know, what was the duration and which products were used and all of that good stuff. And then it's actually going to give you suggestions, right, on those things. So that's kind of what that is. And obviously it looks at historical data, right, of all of those completed work orders. And then we also have IoT alerts, or I should say IoT alerts, AI-based suggestions. So this is very similar, right? So we have these IoT alerts come into the system, and that really, it helps to have the system kind of provide suggestions on how to treat the alert. So for example, maybe it's suggesting a priority, or it's suggesting an incident type, right? It's seeing that, hey, every time we had this particular alert, we had this particular incident type, and then created a work order for that. Of course, and that those are obviously also looking at the historical and past actions. I think this is pretty big, right? We already saw this, that Power Automate flows are now going to take over a lot of what workflows are doing. So we saw that just now with SLAs, and we saw that with automatic creation rules, but we're also going to see that in other areas of Dynamics 365. So for example, agreements, right? So that's also going to leverage Power Automate flows for that maintenance. So it's going to be a lot less heavy on CE, which is kind of nice. And then obviously, Microsoft Intune is a cloud-based service that really focuses on mobile device management and application management. And now administrators can roll out the field service mobile application using Intune to their iOS and Android field technicians by using that standard Intune infrastructure and controls. So that's going to be, that's a very nice feature as well, obviously, for the field service folks. This feature provides integration between Dynamics 365 supply chain management and Dynamics 365 field service. So this is going to be for warehouse, payment type, shipment method, and customer asset as well, I believe. And it leverage obviously the common data model and common data service. So this is kind of where we're starting with, and I'm just guessing that they're going to go ahead and add a lot to that later on as well. But this is kind of the start for that. And this is going to be a complete new version for the schedule board, which is kind of cool. I saw a demo a couple of weeks ago, and it's looking really, really nice. There's also, I believe, on CRM Weekly Tips or whatever it was called, I forgot, but those guys actually did a demo on the schedule board as well, and it was very nice to kind of be able to see how that's going to work. The performance is a lot better. You can kind of see that it loads very quickly as well. So, and I can't wait to kind of be able to turn that on. I haven't had a chance yet to review that. So, and that public preview, it says here April 2020. So I'm not sure if that's still the correct date. I believe it does say that on the Microsoft Docs site. Now, this is kind of interesting because the enhanced work hours calendar, in my opinion, really kind of needed that facelift, because if you realize that this calendar hasn't been touched since CRM version 3.0, then you probably agree with me that this was about time, right? So there is really not, the way it works is still the same, but it's just a new simplified experience for maintaining these work calendars for resources, right? And it's just a little, it's just better, it's more modern. And I just wanted to show that to you guys as well. So I'll show that in the demo as well, so you can kind of see what that looks like. But it definitely looks a lot better now that we have it in a unified interface. And so the requirement dependencies, if you're using field service with that RSO, that resource scheduling optimization engine, then that's when you can start using requirement dependency. So for people who are not using RSO, this is not going to do anything for you, because again, it's just for RSO. So what this does is this is really going to be for scenarios where certain work maybe has to be completed in a particular order. So maybe a technician might have to install an electrical connection first before installing an alarm system. And those might be two separate work orders, right? What you can do with those requirement dependencies is they allow you to set that up in a specific order. They, excuse me. So what we can do is we can relate them through a predecessor and a successor dependency, and that really allows us to schedule them that particular way. But again, this is only going to be supported by resource scheduling optimization, right? So keep that in mind. And also, obviously, this currently only works for one resource for a single day scenario. So if you're using, right, I have a work order that's going over 5 days, it's not going to obviously work for that. Dynamics 365 for field service now also comes with an out-of-the-box Power BI dashboard, and with resource and utilization type of data in there. Now, if you want to access that dashboard, you're just going to have to navigate to the resources area in the Dynamics 365 Field Service app. And then you're going to be able to view that under the analytics section. Now, if you have a license for resource scheduling optimization as well, then there's two additional dashboards that are going to be available. And one of them is called RSO Admin, and the other one is the optimization summary. So, and the other thing that Ben Vollmer actually told me last time I talked to him was that what they're planning is that Microsoft is probably going to release the PBIX files, those Power BI files. So that means that then you're going to actually start tweaking these reports for your own environments as well. So that's going to be pretty cool if that's actually going to happen. So. And you probably heard, or you probably even worked with inspections by Resco, right? So Microsoft is coming out with its own inspections type of functionality. Now, according to the Microsoft documentation, inspections should be available for public preview in April 2020, but I haven't seen anything yet. So I'm guessing that they kind of pushed that out. So after I kind of was reading about it, it looks like it's going to be similar functionality as Resco's inspections. But obviously that's just, I don't know, right? I haven't seen it yet. So I can't wait to kind of be able to dig into that. But it's kind of interesting to know that Microsoft is building their own. And this is another feature that we waited for a long time. We've asked for this for a while. So we're now going to be able to use timesheets with Dynamics 365 Field Service. And it's interesting to know that this actually utilizes the same entity that's used with Dynamics 365 Project Service. So you don't need to have Project Service installed, but it's that same entity, which is great, because if you're an organization that's using both Field Service and Project Service automation, right, it's the same entities through both of those applications, or right, in Dynamics 365. So obviously we're going to be able to capture timesheets for work orders, and this is going to be after a work order obviously has been completed. So you configure the field service, we can configure, gosh, I can't even talk anymore. We can configure field service to create these timesheets automatically from booking timestamps, or we can have the techs manually create those timesheets. So you can configure this by going to the settings area, obviously in the field service app. And then under the general section, you're going to have to go to field service settings, and then you have to open the field service settings record. And that's where a time entry tab is, where you can access that configuration. And there's a lot of that configuration directly on there. So there's different ways, right, to set this up. So you can have automatic time entries. So as a work order's booking status changes as work is performed, right? So this is like traveling and in progress and on break, right? All of that. The system automatically then creates timestamp records each time the booking status change occurs, right? Once the booking status is changed to completed, the system automatically creates time entries from those timestamps that I just mentioned. So when the work order status or that system status right? Not the booking status, the work order system status. When that's set to close post-it, the actual records are automatically created based on the previously created time entries, right? And keep in mind that those actuals actually represent the cost of the field text time. Now, manually is just that, right? You can just enter time manually. You're going to navigate to the service area in the field service app, and then you're just going to add your own time entries. And then lastly, the time off request. When a user actually creates that time off request, the system is automatically going to create a time entry record in Dynamics 365 Field Service. Now, keep in mind that if a resource is actually configured to need approval for time off request, the time entry will need to be approved first, obviously, right? And if you make a change or to the date or the duration of the time off request, the time entry will automatically be updated. And that goes both ways, by the way. So when a time off request is created in the field service mobile app, the system will automatically create the time entry after the data is synchronized, obviously, right? Because otherwise you can't really do it yet. So that's what that is. Then in this release, admins have the ability to configure field service to create timestamps at a more granular level. So currently, timestamps are created when a field service status changes. And with this new feature, we have the ability to configure the system to create timestamps when a booking status occurs. And everybody's probably going to go like, what the heck are you talking about? Okay, so let me explain. Booking statuses are the statuses that the field techs pick from when they update their booking. So if you look at this screenshot, this booking status record, you're going to see that there's an associated field service status for each individual record, right? So in the screenshot, there are two booking statuses that have the related like in progress field service status associated with them. And that's the working and the area setup booking statuses, right? So that's really what we can configure. Do we want those timestamps to be created when each time they select a different booking status, right? So then if I change from area setup, I'm going to create one and I'm going to create one for working, or are we going to stick to the field service status, which means that if I change from area setup to working, they're both in progress. So that's just one, right? So that's kind of how that works. Right, so here's a scenario. I kind of said this already, right? A field service tech changes their status to area setup and then 15 minutes later to working. Do we want to create a timestamp when the field service status changes? That's one. Or do we want to create a timestamp when the booking status changes, because then it's two, right? That's kind of what that is. Now, here's where you can configure that timestamp frequency. So again, you can see that you need to go to the field service settings, and then you can just go ahead and this is a drop down field where it says, right, per booking status change, or the other option that we just mentioned. And then we also have new auto numbering function. And this was kind of funny because I didn't see this in the release note. This was just something that I ran into. So I haven't turned this on yet. So this is just my pop-up screen actually showed me all of this data. So I figured, let me just go ahead and throw this on a slide. Again, I haven't really played around with this yet. So you might want to go ahead and take a look at that as well. And then lastly, this just came out yesterday. So Microsoft actually released a new field service mobile app, which is built on the Power Platform as a model-driven app. So that means that probably not right now, because there's still a lot of work that has to be done to this app, but it's out now. You have to be on field service version 8.8.22 and up, which my instance was not upgraded to that particular level yet, so I couldn't test it. But I did want to show this and share this with you guys, and definitely take a look at that website as well, so you can kind of read about it and what they're planning to do with it and what they're seeing, right, what's going to happen with that, the roadmap. So I would definitely take a look at that. So let's just go into my last demo here. I'm just going to go into field service here. Okay, let's just give it a second. And I'm just going to go to resources. I'm going to show you a couple of different things. I want to show you the reports. This is a new report. I don't have RSO installed on here, so I just have this one. I don't have the other two, but this is that, there we go, Power BI report that we just talked about. And then you can just kind of go, okay, I want to take a look at this data last 3 years, months. You can even take a look at particular resource type or one particular resource or a particular booking status, right? And then you can start playing around with some of this data. Here we go. And then you can kind of take a look at some resource correction analysis. I can just even click on this and then kind of filter that out, as you can see over here. So this is kind of cool. I really liked this. So now let me also go ahead and pick a resource here, and then I can show you that calendar as well. So this is that calendar, right, from the perspective of that resource. And I can drill into this, and let's say I want to edit this, all the events. And now you can see here, I can just go ahead and pick those dates, and then I can set those times as well, and the capacity obviously here as well. And I can add, this is just all times, right, from 8 to 6. And then I can just say, if I say she's working on Sunday or not, this is kind of how you do that. So this is a lot nicer, I feel. Oh, go ahead and I can just get out of there. Let me see the other thing that I wanted to show you guys here. And let me go ahead and show you, if we go into settings, where some of those settings are. So you go here to the settings area, you go to field service settings, and then you're going to open this particular record. So here's my timestamp frequency, right? How did I want to set that up per booking status change or per field service status change? I want it very granular, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So that's kind of where you can you can put that in there. And let me see, the time entry configuration is over here. So this is, okay, how do we want to start generating these time entries? We talked about that, right? Do we want the system to auto generate them once that field service work order has been completed, or do we want to do that manually? And then here is obviously, again, some cost accruals source. Again, do we want to do that on work order time approval, or do we want to do that from the booking journals on the post of the work order? This is what I was just telling you about, right? If we want to do that on posting, we can do that, but we can even create those actuals earlier by setting them to work order time entry approval. So we can do that as well, right? The time entries are being approved, and then after that, I'm going to create my actuals. So that's where you kind of set that. And let me just go back here, field service setting. I believe there was another, here's my SLA configuration, by the way, if you wanted to know where that is, that's on there as well. And I thought I had another setting on here as well. Field service setting, field service settings. Here it is. Oh, I thought it was on the thing itself. Okay, so again, here, this is how you can opt in to that new auto numbering function. So if you click on that, this is everything that I had on that slide, right? So you can kind of take a look at this. It does tell you that you want to make sure that you do this when nobody's actually in the system, right? Because it's going to take a little bit, right? You can see that over here. While opting in, creation of new records might fail, it's highly advised that opting in take place while there's no activity on the organization. So you probably want to do this when nobody's in the system, because it takes a little bit for that to be done. And then lastly, this is where the timesheets are. I'm actually going to go into my other environment, because you see here, I think I have some timesheets in here. This is my sandbox. Let me take a look. Here are my time entries. And as you can see here, this is actually a time entry that got created from a time off request, right? So it's submitted. I can just go in here and then I can just go ahead and approve that. And these are the ones that were created when that particular work order, as you can see here, was completed. So it just created, right, 47 minutes for work, and then break, work, travel. And this is, again, related to the timestamps that are on that work order. Okay, that was all I had for you guys. So I'm glad we were able to stay exactly within the time frame. Like I said, feel free to check out my blog. I post every Tuesday. This coming Tuesday, like I said, I'm doing an article about the SLAs and a unified interface and how to configure that. It's a little bit different, obviously, than that we're used to. So I figured let me do an article on that. Are there any questions? We still have 3 minutes left, so.
Thank you so much, Dion. That
Sure.
was a really, jam-packed session. I'm sure that it's bursting with this, from the seams with lots of knowledge. So thank you for sharing that with us today. It doesn't seem as though people have questions. I think people are just happy to see lots of new enhancements that they can use to improve the experience of the application. So Bobby Chang says that you are rapid fire, Dion. And Ambesh and Bala are all saying that thank you very much. It was a really good session. So thanks again, Dion, for that great session. It really complements today's sessions very well. And and you know where to find Dion in future, D365 Goddess, as her blog on Twitter as well, and you can find her on LinkedIn. And remember, so Trisha and Victor are inviting you to Florida as well to speak there. So that's a Caribbean 365 Saturday. So that's just been reminded by Victor that if you want to meet Dion in person, as well as Victor and Trisha, then definitely come to that event. It's been rescheduled to October, so we're hoping it's going to be a fantastic event. So thanks again, Dion. And now